Welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rogers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rogers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivers for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day and welcome into Gamecock Pod Live. It is February the 14th in the year of our Lord 2024, episode number 1416. And let's jump right into our Nana's Porch news, notes, and headlines. Jump in the Nana's Porch chat box, brought to you by Nana's Porch, an award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area. Nana's Porch has got you covered whatever your catering needs, whether it's a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a backyard bash with a whole hog barbecue. Nana's Porch has got you covered. If you want to bring in a food trailer, Nana's Porch voted among the top 3 in Charlotte by the local newspaper poll and voted numero uno and numero dos in the meat and cheese category by the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association for their award-winning pimento cheese. Smoky jalapeno, number 1, regular flavor, number 2. I strongly urge you to consider supporting this Gamecock-owned and operated business. Go to nanasporch.com, NANASPORCH.com. Tell my good friend Chris Payne, Keith Alsep, sent you. All right, Gamecocks, big opportunity tonight on Valentine's Day on the road. Number 11, South Carolina at number 12, number 13, Auburn. This will be the first time as a ranked team South Carolina has faced a ranked opponent. It will be in a hostile environment at Neville Arena, which seats only about 9,300 people on the plains. Let's face it, Auburn is Clemson without the lake. Bruce Pearl may come out shirtless with his chest painted orange and purple. Who knows? But he does have a heck of a basketball team. South Carolina will be facing perhaps the deepest team in the SEC. Auburn plays 10 players, double-figure minutes. And, guys, this may be the biggest regular season basketball game since that 1997 Tuesday night 9 p.m. ESPN game against Rick Pitino and the Kentucky Wildcats with Dickie V. He was there. Back then he was with ESPN's number 1 crew. Hootie was there. It was at a sold-out Frank McGuire Arena. It was nuts. It was bonkers. I think they had the mosh pit and passed Dickie V up in the crowd. It was amazing. I had it recorded on my VCR. Yeah, that's right. I was coaching the game, got back at halftime, watched the Gamecocks win the game, and it was amazing. But I got a chance. We're going to be saying that a lot. It's going to be the most important regular season game since 1997. This 7-game stretch is brutal. And outside of the LSU game, every game is going to probably be a quad one game. 6 of your final 7 games are going to be quad one opportunities. We'll be joined in just a couple of minutes by our good friend from WLTX in Columbia, Chandler Mack. And then after the Mack attack, we will be joined by the lovely Amanda Poole from WACH Fox 57. It is Quarter Zip Wednesday. We are getting it today. All right. Other news and notes of the day. ESPN, no shock here, will keep the college football playoff, agreeing to a 6-year extension, even though we still don't know what the college football playoff is going to look like, because it was a 5+7. That was when there was a Power 5. Obviously, the Pac-12, disintegrated after the greatest season in the history of their league. So now it's the Power 4. The top 4 seeds get automatic buys. That's right now the top highest rated conference champions. Who's going to be the 5th? How are they going to do that? Notre Dame's not in the conference, so they can never get a top 4 seed, even if they're number 1 in the country. They're going to be hosting a first-round game. None of the top 4 teams are going to host a home game. I don't know how I feel about that, but $1.3 billion per year over the next 6 years. That's a lot of cheese for the NCAA, which, how much longer are they going to be around? Not much is my bet. All right, and then tomorrow, number 1, undefeated, 22-0, South Carolina goes on the road to Knoxville to take on the Tennessee Vols. Head coach Kelly Harper. Tennessee's having a very disappointing season. They've been up and down. They got shellacked by Alabama. Then they absolutely boat raced Arkansas last night. They are 8-3, 15-8 overall, 8-3 in the SEC. And this is kind of the outlier here after Dawn Staley has dominated this conference. The Gamecocks are 12-49 overall against the Vols, 11-12 in the Dawn Staley era. That's the only team Dawn Staley has a losing record against. They'll have a chance to get that on the winning side of the ledger as the Gamecocks face Tennessee in Knoxville tomorrow night, and then the final home game and final regular season game of the season will be on Sunday. I believe it's March 2nd, where the Gamecocks will take on the Lady Vols. Lady Vols led by SEC Player of the Year candidate Rickea Jackson. And so let's go ahead and bring in the Mack attack. Chandler Mack from WLTX is Quarter Zip Wednesday.
I know, right? Got look like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's got on his Lakers jacket.
I do. I know. Yeah. Sorry about that, y'all. You know, I had to rock the home team, real quick. Sorry for not rocking the blazer either, Keith. Yeah. Then, obviously Valentine's Day and all that. Yeah. Preach. Yeah. But, it's Valentine's Day. Been on the go a lot today. Trying to make sure everything's right for the lady, later on tonight. So, yeah. Didn't have time to put on the blazer, but, still here rocking it with y'all. How y'all doing? How you doing, Keith?
Hey, man, it's all good. It is all good. But who is living a bigger dream right now and living the dream than Lamont Paris.
Right.
And
Yeah.
dude was probably keeping some receipts, picked to finish dead last in the SEC as we sit here in mid-February. South Carolina is 9-2 in the SEC, 21-3 overall, and tied atop the SEC with Alabama. And let's face it, nobody had that on their bingo card.
Not at all. Not at all, Keith. Yeah, I mean, for me, I personally felt like in the preseason it was very disrespectful to put the Gamecocks dead last in the SEC, given all of the guys that were coming back from last year, and then the guys that Coach Ferris brought in, the Talon Coopers, the BJ Macks, Stephen Clark, and then Collin Murray-Boyles, who we ended up finding out about over the last couple of weeks that, hey, this dude could ball too. He's only a freshman. He's only going to get better and better. But yeah, going into the preseason, I thought it was very disrespectful to put them last. I was optimistic, thinking, okay, they could maybe get an NIT bid, maybe even host an NIT game. But Keith, I mean, this right here is something different. This is, no one saw this coming. I mean, they are legitimate title contenders, not just SEC title contenders. I mean, national title contenders. And for Coach Ferris to do that in just his second year on the job is a testament to him and the hard work that he's put in on the recruiting trail. It's a testament to the hard work that his coaches have put in. Testament to the players too. I mean, these guys, they've bought into what Coach Ferris is saying, and they've gone out there and they have exceeded expectations to amazing degrees. And I mean, it's exciting. It's really fun. I mean, we haven't had this buzz around town for both basketball teams since 2017, the Final Four run in 2017. So to get that again in the city is amazing.
No doubt. So I said this off the top, Chandler, and I know you were not around back then, but this may be the biggest regular season basketball game South Carolina men's program has played since 1997, when Eddie Fogler, B.J. Mack, Larry Davis, Melvin Watson, Lethal Weapon 3 had it going on at a sold-out Frank McGuire Arena. Dickie V was there. The student section was a mosh pit. They passed him up through the student section. Hootie and the Blowfish was there. That was before it was just Darius going country style. Peace out, Darius. Hope you out of jail. Hope all is well.
Yes, for sure.
On that. But it was amazing. And South Carolina was on the national scene that year. In 2017, you had the Sindarius Thornwell suspension. You had the P.J. Dozier injury. South Carolina, let's face it, call it like it is, typical under Frank Martin, they faded down the stretch of that season. They were having a magical season. They faded down the stretch, snuck in as a 10 seed, beat Marquette, and then got number 2 Duke in Greenville with Jason Tatum, who, by the way, plays for the Boston Celtics.
I know, yeah. He could. Hey, side note on that. Yeah. Side note on that, he could have been a Los Angeles Laker. A lot of people forget that. Magic decided to take Lonzo Ball, and we wish Lonzo nothing but the best in his road to recovery. But yeah. Every day, I think about that quite often. Like, man, he looked real good in Laker jersey, but it all worked out. We got a championship in 2020, and Celtics still waiting on there, so it's all good.
Not probably gonna have to wait much longer, as long as the unicorn stays healthy. But
exactly. Yeah.
All right, so let's get in it tonight. Number 12, number 13, Auburn. Will Bruce Pearl come out with his chest painted orange and purple?
Maybe.
But dude has got a hell of a basketball team. They play 10 guys. This will not be a favorable matchup game, in my opinion, for B.J. Mack, because he's going against Johnny Broome, who's 6'10", 240, and Jalen Williams, 6'8", 245. Auburn plays 10 guys, double-digit minutes. Those are the only 2 guys that average in double figures. Broome, 16 points, almost 9 rebounds per game. He's shooting 56% from the field, 34% from three. Williams averaging 13 points a game. He shoots 58% from the field. But Auburn, number 2 in the nation in field goal defense, at only allowing opponents to shoot 38%. They are second in the SEC in scoring defense, 67 points per game. South Carolina number 1 at 64%. Auburn number 1 in the SEC in block shot percentage. They block a lot of shots. They are uber athletic. They average 82 points per game. And so, no pun intended, everybody keep their mind out of the gutter here. But for me, the key number in this game is 69, and that is 69 points or less. South Carolina is 1-3 in games in which they allow their opponents to score 70 points per game. We've seen them do it against Kentucky and on the road against Tennessee, hold those teams to over 20 points below their season average. To me, South Carolina is going to have to do that again tonight on the Plains to have a shot at getting a win. Your thoughts on this big matchup?
Yeah, I think like you said, I think no, get your mind out the gutter. But yeah, keeping it under 69 points, that's going to be the key for them. If you get in a shootout with Auburn in the jungle, quote unquote, that's going to be a tough one for you. No matter how good of a defense that you have, ultimately they're going to start making shots eventually, right? So the key is just to halt that as much as you can. And I think, the Gamecocks, they got the guys who are capable of doing that. And yes, it's going to be a tough matchup for BJ, dealing with those big twin towers that Auburn has, BJ and Collin Murray-Boyles. That's going to be tough, but the boys pack that thing too, Keith, right? So, I mean, it ain't going to be easy for Auburn either, especially with Collin Murray-Boyles, the confidence that he's going to have coming off of being the SEC Freshman of the Week last week in that 31-point performance that he had against Vanderbilt on Saturday. I think he's going to have a really big impact on this game. And I think that also another key, Keith, is that the Gamecocks, they have been able to win the past couple of games in spite of Meechie Johnson really not getting going as a scorer, right? I mean, Meechie's done other things. He's played good defense. He's facilitated the ball well. I think I saw something where he has 13 assists over the last 2 games, and that's really, really solid. But I think he's got to get going as a scorer, especially against an Auburn team that, again, it's going to be tough to, 1, difficult to score on just in your natural offense, and then 2, it might be a little difficult to stop. I think you're going to need Meechie to get going as a scorer and try to get at least, I think, the magic number for him tonight would be like 15, between the 15 and 18-point range. I think if he does that, the Gamecocks could have a solid chance to win. If you get maybe 15 to 17 from BJ Mack, that would be really great. Honestly, not even that much. Probably just 12 to 15 from BJ Mack would be really good. And then maybe 16 or 17 from Collin Murray or even Miles Studi. They've been bringing him off the bench, and he's been playing really well. He's a guy that's been in that environment before. He talked about that back on Monday. He knows what it's like, and that's so okay, the moment's not going to be too big. The lights aren't going to be too bright for him. So I think that's really good. I think if the Gamecocks, if they can get those contributions from those guys, and then the other guys like Josh Gray or Jacoby Wright, they give you, maybe 5 to 7 points. And then with Josh Gray, give you solid defense, especially dealing with what Auburn has in the front court. Then the Gamecocks could have a chance to win this one.
I mean, no doubt about it. South Carolina's going to have to dictate the pace. They're not going to be able to go up and down like Auburn likes to do. You also look at it, Auburn starting backcourt. Trey Donaldson, 6'3", Denver Jones, 6'4". They're long. Chris Moore, 6'6", 220. This is an old basketball team. Outside of Donaldson, they're a junior, senior, graduate, basketball team. They're deep. They're going to be at home. Auburn is in the top 8 in the net, as is Alabama and Tennessee. Every game except the LSU game could be a quad one opportunity for South Carolina at home, and all the road games are going to be quad one games, and they're just not going to be top 75. All these teams are going to be in the top 40 to 50. Maybe Ole Miss, I think they're 62 in the net, but hell, they may play better than anybody on the schedule at home that South Carolina has left to play. And so let's talk about the notorious CMB, and B stands for baller. Okay, just the SEC player of the week, but the CBS Sports National Freshman of the week, 31 points, grown man moves, 4 dunks.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, love is in the air. This is playing out of his mind. Chloe Kitts, we love you, girl. Keep on keeping on.
Yes, both of them. Both of them. We love it. Yeah. No, I mean, it's really awesome to see. I mean, I've been covering Collin since his days at AC Flora, and we kind of saw it then. We saw the potential in him then. He ended up going somewhere else for his senior season, but I mean, Coach Paris kind of talked about that. May have helped him a little bit because he was able just to focus on basketball and come here truly a finished product. And they talked about it during preseason. They were like, hey, he was the best player that we had, during the summer. But then he, of course, got mono, and that kind of set him back a little bit. And honestly, some of us may have forgot about him. Like, oh, yeah, they do have Collin Murray-Boyles coming back. And then it took him a couple of games, took him maybe, 6 to 12 games. But after that, I mean, he figured it out real fast. And now we're seeing really why everybody was so excited about him, because we talked to the guys on Monday, and they were like, does he surprise? We were like, does he surprise you with things that he does on the court? They're like, nah, I mean, he does this all the time. Like, we knew that he had that dog in him. We knew that he was capable of doing all these things, even against high level SEC competition and only being a freshman. And yeah, I mean, it's just really awesome to see, and the boost that he gives this team. Right, I mean, you're already getting good, solid stuff from DJ Mack. You're already getting pretty good stuff from Michi Johnson on a regular basis. You know what Studi's going to give you. You know what Jacoby Wright's going to give you, Josh Gray. But now you add in this young freshman that no one has tape on like that everybody's trying to figure out. Okay, well, how do we stop him? Makes them so much more dangerous, right? And I mean, it's really, really awesome to see, given that he is a hometown guy, and he's really embracing, kind of being that hometown hero for the Gamecocks. It's real cool to see.
No doubt. But so let's go back a couple years, because, okay, Lamont Paris comes in. He offers this guy, Collin Murray-Boyles and Arden Conyers, in the same week. Both of them end up committing in the same week. Okay, neither one had Power 5 offers. Collin Murray-Boyles, 0 Power 5 offers until South Carolina stepped up. It was basically UNC Wilmington, College of Charleston, Coastal, and Winthrop. I mean, that's who South Carolina was beating for him. Yeah, I think SMU had offered. I don't even know if that was committable or not. Yeah. But let's talk about the evaluation skills of Lamont Paris. I don't think they were taking a flyer on this guy. But let's face it, he's put in a lot of work since then. He's lost about 35 pounds, and that was before he got mono. He reshaped his body. He went out to WACH Academy in Utah, played against a great schedule, forced him to elevate his game. He got a lot more individual instruction and really got to work on his craft. And he was not a four-star guy until the end of his senior year, not when he committed. And so kudos to Lamont Paris and his staff. And Arden Conyers is a younger guy. He redshirted this year because of the guard depth, but from what I'm hearing, he's knocking down a lot of shots behind the arc in practice, and he's going to be ready. That's what his deal was in high school at Westwood was this guy is a knockdown shooter. He's worked on becoming bigger and stronger physically, working on his craft. He's going to be ready, I think, to make an impact next year. But to me, very underrated going back 2 years and very savvy by Lamont Paris to lock up this guy. And if South Carolina keeps pace, he may be the SEC Freshman of the Year in a loaded freshman class in the SEC. Hell, Kentucky's got 4 lottery picks that are freshmen.
Yeah, and he's better than them. I mean, at least he's playing better than them right now, right? And I think, that's where you got to really give kudos to Coach Paris and his staff because he kind of hit the ground running as soon as he got here back in 2022 as far as really trying to establish connections with a lot of the local guys. I mean, we could go back to his recruitment of Gigi Jackson, right? He made sure he met with Gigi. Frank Martin had already established a pretty good relationship with them. And Coach Paris continued that and not only got Gigi to commit to South Carolina, he got him to reclassify and come here, as a 17-year-old freshman, right? And then, like you said, got with CMB, got him to come here, saw something in him that a lot of us, some people may not have saw, right? Like, okay, he can go, he can develop his game, and he can come here and be way better than what he was when he was a 3-star prospect at AC Flora. And then he went and got Arden from Westwood. I think, you just got to give him credit on that, like realizing, okay, we got local talent here, right? And we need to keep that local talent here in South Carolina and have them come to Columbia, right? Or stay in Columbia in some cases. So then you got to really give kudos to Coach Paris and his staff on that because I think, in the years with Frank after the Final Four, I think that was a criticism that Frank often got was like, why is John Morant going to Murray State, right? You really wasn't in the running with getting Zion, realistically, but, you can make the argument, okay, could you have gone after him a little bit more? But again, like I said, he was going to Duke regardless, right? But, or North Carolina, wherever, regardless. But, and then, a guy like a James Reese, the fifth, right? Like trying to make sure that he stayed. He ended up coming back to South Carolina, but you could have maybe got him sooner. And then Chico Carter Jr., same thing, ended up coming back to South Carolina, but maybe you could have just kept him here in the beginning, right? So I think that give credit to Coach Paris realizing, hey, we got the local talent here. Let's go ahead and keep them here as much as we can. And he even tried to recruit Cam Scott out of Lexington, who's killing it right now. But Cam ultimately decided to go to Texas. But that wasn't for a lack of effort on Coach Paris and his coaching staff's part. They really did do everything they could to keep him here in Columbia. But, ultimately he went to Texas. He's going to go to Texas.
No doubt. All right, so B.J. Mack. We know it was Vanderbilt. They're like number 238 in the net, but South Carolina trailed in that game 32-28 at halftime. I think up until the second half of that game, B.J. Mack was like 4 or 5 of his last 28 from three-point range. He was in a bigger funk than Tahina Pow, which we will get to shortly. But B.J. Mack comes out. I think he hit 4 threes in the second half. He really got it going. Tonight, when South Carolina runs that pick and pop with B.J. Mack, to me, he's got to get about that much closer to the three-point line. It seems like when he's missing, he's like 2 or 3 feet behind the line. He needs to get a step closer to get that shot up. I mean, I think his percentage goes up exponentially. Plus, he's really starting to shoot it from the wings and the corner three much better than from the top of the key. Do we see kind of a tweak in the offense and open up the screen and roll with Collin Murray-Boyles at the top and B.J. Mack maybe on the strong side of that, to where if the point guard turns the corner, he may be able to drive and kick to B.J. Mack in the corner?
I would like that. I would like that a lot. Yeah, because like you mentioned in the second half, it seemed like they started to figure out second half of the game against Vanderbilt. They started to figure out that, like literally what you just said. Like, okay, yeah, we'll have BJ stay near the 3-point line, kind of near the corner or a little bit, on the outside, not right at the top of the key. And BJ started to all of a sudden hit threes. He hit one from the right side, hit one from the left side. They figured it out, and we'll keep Collin Murray-Boyles in the paint, and we'll let him go to work, right? And I think that's going to be there just in case, okay, BJ misses a three, or Miles Studi may miss a three, or Talon Cooper may miss a three. Hey, we got Collin right there to get an offensive rebound, which he got 6 of them, against Vanderbilt, which is mind-boggling to me that you can get that 7 rebounds for the game, and 6 of them were offensive rebounds, right? Just amazing stuff out of CMB for sure. But yeah, I think that would be a great adjustment for them, because again, you're dealing with so much height and so much length inside. I think it's going to be hard to ask BJ to go to work inside like that, and then maybe try to get him, in the mid-range game as well, because I think that's one thing I would love to see them do more with BJ. I like him shooting threes. It's a great thing that he can shoot threes, but let's not fall in love with that 3-point shot too much. The mid-range game still exists. You can still make it happen. Just ask DeMar DeRozan that. He's turned to Hall of Famer just off the mid-range. So,
hey,
like I said.
Ask Flanagan from Ole Miss about the mid-range.
Yeah, honestly,
that dude, he killed from the elbows and the free throw line area jump shots.
Yes.
South Carolina.
Yes. So it's you can still definitely make that a part of your game. And like I said, maybe, limit BJ's threes tonight, hopefully 5 and under. Like he doesn't need to take more than 5, because let's say he takes 5, I think if he hits 3 of them or 2 of them, you got to consider that a win.
Yeah, 1 for 8 or 9 is not going to get it tonight.
No, at all.
For sure. So, all right, we know we did not have this on our bingo card. South Carolina men's basketball has exceeded all expectations. They got 7 games to go. They're 21-3, 9-2 right now. The bracketology doctor, Joe Lenardi, the short, stout man with the bad hair system, for sure. He's got South Carolina on the 5 line. Jerry Palm, CBS, has them on the 3 line. South Carolina wins this game tonight. I think they definitely will, continue that upward trend. But this is going to be a quad 1 road game. I mean, Kansas got blown out by 29, and they didn't drop at all in the net. The net does not love South Carolina. They might lose by 5 and drop to 70. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Yeah. But I do know South Carolina is ranked 11th nationally, which means a lot more than the net at this point in the season.
Right.
And so it is going to be a brutal stretch of games, right? There's no doubt about it. LSU, they're in the 90s in the net. You get them at home. Yeah. But other than that, okay, you are looking at a stretch starting tonight. You're playing number 11 and number 12, 13 Auburn. They're 8 in the net. You got a road game at Ole Miss after LSU at home, which those guys seem to play out of their minds at home.
Yeah.
At Texas A&M, Buzz Williams and his team took Rick Barnes and Tennessee out behind the woodshed last Saturday in College Station. Florida, that's a home game. Gators, obviously, like a lot of teams, not as good on the road as at home. They beat Auburn at home for the first time since the 90s.
Exactly.
When I still had there. So that was impressive. And then you end the season at home against Tennessee, by the way, a revenge game for Rick Barnes. And then you go to the hump and take on Mississippi State and Tolu Smith they're in the top 35 in the net. And so brutal stretch.
Yes.
For South Carolina to stay kind of where they are now in the bracketology projections, how does this regular season have to play out for them? I mean, obviously, if they win the SEC tournament, that's going to be a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
But just 7 games, what do they have to do to stay in the hunt for one of those 3, 4, or 5 seeds?
I think best case scenario 5-2. Realistic scenario 4-3, 3-4. I think that's like where you got to go. And let's be, real thankful that you won those games earlier in the season. Those midweek games. That game against Notre Dame is the one I'm thinking about on that Tuesday night. Let's be very thankful that you won those games, because you've been able to stack up wins in preparation for this this hard stretch with all the teams that you just mentioned, Keith, because now all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, if we go like 3-4, we're still in good shape, right? Over these next 7 games. We go 4-3, we're in real good shape. We go 5-2, man, we're in great shape to set ourselves up to win the SEC regular season title, right? But I think, realistically, let's say, 3-4, 4-3. I think if you do that, you still set yourself up to where, one, you're definitely a lock for the tournament and to be a pretty good seed in the tournament. And then 2, you set yourself up for the SEC tournament where you'll be a good seed in that as well, which we know the Gamecocks in years past haven't had much luck in the SEC tournament. But who knows, maybe this year, I mean, we've seen it, right? This year has been a different year than any of us could have expected. So maybe, that could be the case as well this year. But like I said, if you go 2-5, it's like, we're still going to make the tournament, right? But we're not ending the regular season. It's like 2017, right? We're not ending the regular season as strong as we could have, right? You want to kind of get to the postseason and be the best versions of yourself. And I think if you can go 4-3 or even 3-4 and definitely 5-2, you'll definitely go into the postseason feeling like, okay, we can truly beat anybody in the country.
I mean, no doubt. I think if South Carolina goes 5-2, they're winning the SEC, and 4-3, they may still get a, tie potentially. That'd be 13-5. That might do it.
Yeah, exactly.
13-5, 14-4 is going to win the SEC. And then all of a sudden, we just won the best league in the country. How can we not be a 3 or a 4 seed at worst? So, everything is out there for this team, no doubt about it. So I got to ask you, I think there was a women's basketball game on Sunday. Oh, yeah, the Eagle Empire, Darth Vader, Gino Auriemma, and UConn. I mean, it's all about UConn. Dude that comes down for ESPN tweets about the environment and how he's never seen anything like it in his game story is all about UConn. Nothing about Dawn Staley, about nobody had South Carolina #1 on their bingo card. Nobody had South Carolina as the only undefeated team in the country. In fact, they are the only Power 5 team in the country with fewer than 3 losses. Every other Power 5 team in the country has at least 3 losses. It isn't just time to recognize the greatness that is Dawn Staley, the fact that they did replace the freshies, all 5 brand new starters, and you've got freshmen and sophomores making major impacts for this team. They are deep. Yes, they added Tahina Powell, who, by the way, everybody loves to talk about Paige Beckers, and I love Paige Beckers. She was phenomenal until she got hurt. She's still really good because they don't really play anybody except in the non-con. Tahina Powell, she broke out of her slump. Okay, went for a season high 21 points, 8 of 12 from the field, 5 of 7 from downtown. Very efficient.
Yeah.
Paige Beckers, 20 points on 20 field goal attempts, 8 for 20. She was shooting 55% coming in to the game and 45% from 3, just 2 of 6. UConn had 4 players shooting almost 40% or better. The lowest was Ashlyn Shade at 38%. Then the other 3 over 40% from the field. They couldn't do it, and they got boat raced from 69-44 after 3 quarters. It was over, and Gino was fortunate Dawn Staley had the class to call off the Dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keith, the difference 7 years can make, right? I mean, it's pretty wild, pretty mind-boggling the difference that can make. I mean, I remember this rivalry being a student at UNC, and it'll be like, oh, well, South Carolina's playing UConn, we got to go to the game. And Coach said it after the game. It was just used to just be another blowout win for UConn back in the day. But now, all of a sudden, Gamecocks 4-0 in their last 4 matchups against UConn, including the victory in 2022 in the national championship and a victory on Sunday. I mean, it's pretty wild how things have shifted, and now the standard of women's college basketball is now Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks. And yeah, I mean, back to the game on Sunday, back to Tahina. I mean, someone told her, hey, all eyes, it's Super Bowl Sunday, Paige Becker's going to be here. We don't need you to ball out and shine. And she really did. I mean, yeah, like you said, 21 points, 5 of 7 from 3. She had 16 points in the first half alone. And then there was a play where she really, really took Paige's ankles. Now, mind you, Paige did her thing too. I mean, she had 20. But yeah, that play on the baseline where Tahina in the first half where she hit the fadeaway on Paige, I was like, ooh, okay, all right. Yeah, she came to play today for real. But yeah, I mean, I think the depth of this team is just wild. I mean, because, Keith, they did all of this, and their leading scorer, their leading rebounder, then their leader in block shots, Camila Cardozo, was in Brazil with their national team. She didn't even play, right? And they still went up against UConn, who, yeah, they're not the UConn of old, but they're still UConn. They're still a top 15 team in the country, still well-respected, still got Gino Ariam, still got Paige Beckers, who was going to be a top 3 or top 4 pick in the WNBA draft. Beat them by 18, and really it was not even that close, right? I mean, like you said, Coach Staley was like, all right, yeah, we'll put the young players in, at the end of the game, right? But they really could have put it on them even more than they did. I think, yeah, like you said, that's a testament to what Coach Staley's building. It's a testament to the players. We knew this team could be a top 10 team in the country. We just didn't know they would be this good, where you are 6-0 now against teams ranked in the top 25. And I think the average margin of victory in those games is well over 20 points, right? That is crazy. And like you said, the fact that no other team in the country is undefeated, every other team who's as close to the Gamecocks has at least 3 losses, and the Gamecocks have none. It's wild. It's absolutely crazy. And like I said, it's a testament to what Coach Staley is building. It's so awesome to see, as someone that covers the team, as a graduate of the university, to see them continue to be the standard in college women's basketball.
No doubt about it. So without Camila Cardozo, we saw Ashlyn Watkins step into the starting lineup. Ashlyn Swatkins. Okay.
Yeah.
KK Arnold, PTSD from getting absolutely posterized, not once, but twice on national television.
Yeah.
Okay. Dawn Staley, I mean, she said it. Ashlyn is a starter for us. So that's at least 6 starters they have. We know, look, the second leading scorer on the team is Malaysia Fulwiley.
Exactly.
I really thought the game was too hyped for her and for Raven Johnson in the first half. I thought Johnson settled in, ended up with a double-double, 10 points and 12 rebounds, which was a career high.
Yeah.
But the freshman that was never rattled, that was silky smooth, was Tessa Johnson. She came in early. She said, "Hey, you're not the only player from Minnesota that can ball, Paige Beckers. I'm going off the dribble. I'm taking it to the rack. Come and get it. Foul me, or I'm making it. Okay, I'll go to the free throw line. I'll knock those down. Okay, I'll shoot the rainbow archer from 3 and bring the rain with it.
Yeah, I love it.
40% from 3, 2 of 5, other than Beckers, 2 of 6, 9 big points off the bench. And it just seems like nothing rattles her. She has a smile on her face, or she is locked in.
Yeah.
I like it about Full Wiley that she was hot, but man, between her, Chloe Kids, even Pow Pow going to the rim, they were so hot, they were shooting layups that weren't even hitting the rim coming off the backboard.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, and that's the thing. I mean, Malaysia deservedly so gets a lot of the hype for her the flashy plays, and just the way not only her flashy plays, but how she has grown as a defender as well. I mean, she's really come in and became a great defender so far on the perimeter. But yeah, I think we tend to forget about Tessa, right? Like, we tend to forget that, Tessa can, like you said, shoot 40% from 3 like it's nothing. That I love her shot because I love following it in the air when I'm shooting it, because it's such a rainbow, and then you just see it slowly go into the basket. It's so cool to see. But we tend to forget, they do have Tessa coming off the bench that can give you those 3-pointers, and also, not be afraid to take to the rack, get fouled, and then go to the line and knock down free throws. I mean, they're so dangerous. It is wild. I mean, you look at them from top to bottom and you say there's literally no weakness. It's like, okay, if you deal with Camilla, when Camilla comes back, you deal with Camilla. Okay, well, Chloe could eat, right? Okay, if you somehow stop Camilla and Chloe, hey, we got Tahina that can shoot. I think she's now shooting 50%, still shooting 50% from 3 for the entire season. Tahina can go off. Raven can go off, right? Or just facilitate the offense and do what she needs to do, right, in the starting lineup. If you somehow stop the starting lineup, okay, get this. We got a bench that features an Ashlyn Watkins who had 15 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals, against UConn. And since she was inserted in the starting lineup, I think she's definitely averaging a double-double, but she's averaging close to 15 points as well, and continuing to be solid on defense, right? We got Ashley coming off the bench. We got Malaysia Full Wiley, who, like you said, is the team's second leading scorer coming off the bench. We got Tessa Johnson, who had 9 points against UConn and who could get a bucket anytime as well. We got all of that firepower. We still got Sanaya Fagan, right? And, by the way, I didn't even mention Breezy Hall, right? So you got 10 players legitimately that can be threats for you, and no other team in the country, in my opinion, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, has 5 that can do that. Gamecocks got 10, right? 10 legitimate players who can lead the team in scoring. Definitely 8, but I feel like 10, right? Depending on the game and the opponent. No other team has 5 of those players. That's what makes this team so dangerous and so awesome and just exciting to watch.
No doubt about it. So South Carolina travels to Knoxville to take on Tennessee. The only team in the SEC Dawn Staley has a losing record against, because there was this coach named Pat Summitt that was there when Dawn Staley came into the league. South Carolina's 11-12. They got 2 games, so by the end of the season, they'll be on the winning side of the ledger, in my opinion. But like you said, 6 wins over ranked opponents by an average of 18 points per game. Gamecocks have outscored their opponents in the first quarter by an average of 10.6 points. That's the most in any quarter. They held UConn to a season-low 11 points in the first quarter on Sunday. 14 games, South Carolina has had at least 5 players score in double figures. And that's in 14 of their 23 games. Some of those games, there have been 6 players in double figures. The Gamecocks lead the nation in opponents' field goal defense, allowing just 31.1%, which puts them atop the nation in defensive rebounding at 33.2 per game. South Carolina is third in the nation in scoring, 88.6 points per game, and has just been held under 70 points once this season. So it is going to be a handful. Look, South Carolina is the only unbeaten. They got a 3-game lead on everybody in the SEC with 6 to go. They're going to be double-digit favorites in every game. I mean, they got a 54-game home win streak. Maybe it's 55 now after UConn. They've won 41 straight SEC regular season games. Tomorrow night would be 42, which would put them in Pat Summitt territory. Pat Summitt once had 42 consecutive SEC regular season wins, and then had 44 consecutive SEC regular season win streak. South Carolina, if they run the table, they're going to shatter that record. That'd be, if they went out, it'd be 47 consecutive regular season SEC wins, and their home win streak would approach 60. So, Chandler, I think we lost you. So, there he is. All right, we got you back. No volume. All right, let's try again. All right, so we're going to call that a wrap with Chandler. Chandler, if you can hang in the waiting room and make sure you completely download. We'll be right back after this commercial message with Amanda Poole from WACH Fox 57.
If you enjoy listening and watching the free Wednesday show, now live streaming on YouTube, and would love more Gamecock Pod daily, join our growing Gamecock family by becoming a monthly or annual subscriber. You'll be able to listen to the show every day of the week and listen to guests like J.C. Sherbert, Hale McGranahan, and John Whittle from thebigspur.com, Colin Taylor and Mike Uva from Gamecock Central, Emily Adams from the Greenville News, Ben Portnoy, Michael Lanana, and Jeremiah Holloway from GoGamecocks.com, Michael W. Bratton, the host of That SEC podcast, and many, many more. As a VIP subscriber, you can join or listen to the weekly live Zoom call with up to 100 of your favorite Gamecocks and friends. After the show is an unrecorded overtime segment where the real scoop gets dropped and discussed. It's like going down to your local pub or sports bar and having a conversation with your Gamecock friends about last week's football game, men's and women's basketball games, and Gamecock baseball. And of course, there's always recruiting to discuss. In addition to the weekly Zoom call, VIP subscribers get the most popular podcast, The Morning After, which is released every Sunday morning during football season, and more VIP perks are in the works. Follow Keith on Twitter at KAllset, or follow the show on Twitter at Gamecock Pod. Go to the top of the homepage and follow the link. If all else fails, go to patreon.com/Gamecock Pod Daily. Join now and get up to 3 months free off an annual VIP subscription. You will love it, guaranteed. Now, back to Gamecock Pod Live.
And Quarter Zip Wednesday rolls on with Amanda Poole from WACH Fox 57. Clearly a lot better looking than the dudes that I know that used to work there, Mike Uva and Matt Dowell, who works there now. And so, Amanda, welcome in to Quarter Zip Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day. And so, tell us your background and how you fell in love with sports and decided you wanted to cover sports. And if you're not from Columbia, how'd you wind up in Columbia?
Well, thanks for having me on again. I'm wearing my pink. I might not be in a Quarter Zip, but it's Valentine's Day. I have to address the holiday as well. So happy Valentine's Day to you too. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to talk Gamecock basketball. As far as my background goes, I've been here in Columbia for about 2 years and 3 months-ish. I think I'm reaching my 2.5 year marks pretty soon. But I'm from Toledo, Ohio. I went to school at Michigan State. Go Green, go Spartans.
Party.
Yep. And then I went to Nebraska, worked there for a year, learned a lot of stuff in the cold, cow-covered state of Nebraska. And then, then I came here because I love basketball, and the Carolinas are where it's at for basketball. And the reason why I love sports is because I played them, not collegiately, because I'm not 6 foot and I don't have any bunnies. But I love the game. I love being around it. I love talking to players and coaches and people like you that are so invested in this sport. Because it really does bring people together. And especially, what a time to be a Gamecock fan right now.
I mean, no doubt about it. The Gamecocks are a combined 43-3. Is that right? Women are 22-0. The men are 21-3. And so my wife actually spent some time in Nebraska growing up. She has, while we live in Texas, she hates the cold weather. But so, there was a big women's basketball game in Nebraska on Sunday, and Maud, the coach at Iowa, Lisa Bluter, I think that's really her name, she did not like the fact that not only did they lose, and not only did the savior of the sport, Caitlin Clark, go 0 for 8 in the fourth quarter, she didn't like the fact they played music before the free throws. She didn't like the fact that the students stormed the court and made the Nebraska players late for their media availability, and she just burst in cursing like a sailor. Now, imagine if Dawn Staley would have been caught on a hot mic doing the same thing. What would the headlines have been?
The reason why Dawn has not done that, I think it's called controlling your emotions a little bit there. And don't get me wrong, there are protocols and they do have flights to get to, but there's ways to go about things.
Yeah, but so I'm saying she would be held to a completely different standard than if Gino would have come in cursing, because we all know famously after South Carolina beat UConn for the first time back in 2020, I guess that was before you got here. That was the season where that team didn't get to win the national championship or at least even play for it. He spent like about 30 minutes, and he didn't like the fact that he had to talk about losing to South Carolina, and he had some colorful words in that press conference, as he often does, But to me, if she would have done that, just like, let's look at ESPN, the game story from Sunday's game on ESPN.com. They sent this dude down there named Myron Metcalf. Hey, Myron, I'm going to put this short out just for you, bro. He tweets out what an unbelievable environment it is, but the entire story was about Gino and UConn and how they're not playing for the regular season. They're working on getting better for the postseason. It wasn't that South Carolina has beaten them 4 in a row and 5 out of 6. It wasn't that nobody expected South Carolina to be number 1 in the nation after losing all 5 starters, including the WNBA Rookie of the Year and the number 1 overall pick, Aaliyah Boston, the freshies, etc. That's the story of the year. It's not Caitlin Clark. Okay, Kelsey Plum never won anything in college. How many Final Fours did Washington go to? She scored a bunch of points. Caitlin Clark is a great player. But for ESPN to send a reporter to that game, the magnitude of that game, number one, over 18,000 people, the largest crowd in the history of the state of South Carolina to watch a basketball game. And ESPN's whole story, even though they were happy to come and broadcast the game and get the ratings, none of it was about Dawn Staley and the job she's done with her young basketball team replacing 5 starters. Why is that?
I don't know personally why South Carolina hasn't become – I don't know what it's going to take for them to become that brand. You have UConn, you had Tennessee for a really long time, and they're still going to be considered that brand because of what they were able to accomplish in the early years, the early 40 years under Pat. But I don't know what it'll take for South Carolina to become part of that big brand group where they go into big matchups like that and they get that respect. And Dawn Staley's talked about it so much with the word narrative and how people write it and who's writing it. And she wants to make sure the narrative is written and told by people that respect this game and respect the program. I don't know how many more national championships she needs to win, how many more WNBA #1 picks she needs to produce to be a part of whatever that group, that little hierarchy we got going on there, because this women's game has seen the most parity in these past couple of years. And I don't think people understand how to kind of work with that because they've never experienced this before. So I think South Carolina is breaking that barrier. I think they're trying to faster than it actually is happening. But I'm on the South Carolina train. I think that game on Sunday proved more about South Carolina than UConn as far as this season goes.
So I think it was you that asked the question about, this young team, but about the players in today's age of the transfer portal. We've not seen players like Breezy Hall hit the transfer portal because she had to wait for her turn. She's become a leader. Sanaya Fagan, who was the number 3 player in the country, she's still only playing about 14 or 15 minutes per game. Okay. I mean, you have, Raven Johnson, who was the Naismith National Player of the Year. She had an injury. Then she had to wait last year behind Kara Fletcher. She had that viral moment with Caitlin Clark in the Final Four. It's kind of fueled her. Those players have waited their turn, and we saw it on Sunday. Breezy Hall, Paige Beckers had one of her more inefficient nights of the year. Yeah, she scored 20 points, but that was on 20 field goal attempts. She was a 45% three-point shooter and shooting 54% for the season. She was 8 for 20 and just 2 for 6 from downtown. Raven Johnson had a double-double, 10 points, 12 rebounds. Talk about that, and then just what the crowd and the energy and that building was like on Sunday, because from everything I've heard from the people I've talked to, whether it's a men's or a women's game, they've never been in a crowd that electric.
Yeah, well, going back to what you started with, as far as how a lot of these players have waited their turn and they've been patient. Dawn did talk about that after the UConn game, and said that I think it was a question about Ashlyn and how great it is to see her succeed with knowing how big of a cheerleader she was last season. And Dawn says, I'm so transparent when she recruits players, saying, hey, you got about 5 All-Americans in front of you. Playtime's not going to be, you're not going to get 30, 35 minutes. No one gets 35 minutes per game, really, just they don't have to. But she's talked about how she's very transparent with people to begin with, so people know what they're signing up for. And you kind of just have to feel your priorities. I mean, Ashlyn came here as a hometown hero, wanting to play for this program, knowing that this is a program that competes for national championships. And I think that that's Exhibit A, Sanaya Rivers. She went to NC State because she wasn't getting the play time. It's all personal priorities. Clearly, Ashlyn was willing to wait or fight for her minutes, but it's really cool to see those bench players kind of get in. And a lot of these games, South Carolina has beaten teams so badly that bench players are getting more minutes because Dawn Staley doesn't need to play her starting 5 the whole game, which is really great for those players to get those key minutes. But going back to the atmosphere, it was so amazing. I've been to so many games in my past, like over 2 years here, men's and women's, and just to see the growth from just, especially from men's basketball to women's basketball. And the only thing that I could compare it to was last year's LSU game, because that was really intense as well. Just like all these storylines. There was a lot more LSU fans though last year. I did not see many UConn fans. I don't know if they were up in the rafters or what, but it was all Gamecock fans. And then you had the 2000s rapper Plies come in and hype everybody up. He brought so many more eyeballs to this game from a different audience that this game probably doesn't see. So that was really cool. I don't even know how to describe it. It was very energetic. I was on the baseline for the whole game, shooting the game. And, you had Lamont Paris sitting behind me and he's yelling at the refs and everything. It's just so cool to see that community come together and for them to just take control of that game in the first period.
Yeah, I mean, UConn, a season low 11 points in the first quarter. South Carolina led by as much as 19 in the first half. UConn scored the last 5, then they scored the first bucket of the second half. It's a 12-point game. It goes back to 14 or 16, and then in the third quarter, the Gamecocks go on a 13-2 run, and they're up by 25 going into the fourth, and it's over. Okay. So I never thought I'd see the day when the proud Gino Auriemma would stand at the podium and talk about moral victories, which he opined about. Well, they only beat us by 4 points in the second half. Well, bro, they really waxed your behind. Okay, it was 25 going into the fourth, and she called the dogs off. He wouldn't have done that. Okay, because he never did that. And I mean, I know a lot of Gamecock fans, including me personally. I was kind of pissed they didn't win by 20 or 25 because to me, they were at least 25 points better than UConn. And, like we talked about before we went live, is just he's been dethroned, and I still don't think he's not come to the acceptance step in his 7-step program.
It's interesting because after the game, a lot of the UConn reporters were asking questions about his bench and just the game in general. And he didn't really say anything about South Carolina and what they were able to do against him. He didn't really touch on the fact that, yeah, our team struggled because we played against the number 1 team in the nation, and Dawn Staley's team is great. It was never that, which most coaches normally say after a game like that. He focused internally, focused on his players not playing well, things like that. And it's just, I don't know, I think there comes a point where you have to respect the person that you're going up against, especially when they're number 1 in the country and undefeated.
No doubt. So South Carolina did that without their leading scorer and rebounder. Now she's coming back. Dawn Staley said, she may have a decision to make because Ashlyn Watkins, she sees her, she hears her quarterbacking the defense. I mean, let's face it. If you name the top 3, the cornerstones or the core values of Dawn Staley's program, the top 3 would be defense, defense, defense. That's it. Then rebounding and offensive rebounding. Those have been the core values. Ashlyn Swatkins, which I love that name. KK Arnold probably still having nightmares from being posterized twice on national television by Ashlyn. But it looks like Dawn Staley is going to stick with the starting lineup. She said last night on her call-in show. If Camilla is not jet lagged, she will start. They'll start the same 5. But I would expect Ashlyn is going to be a closer. We saw that against LSU. She got in early foul trouble. Dawn saved her for the fourth quarter because of what she brings on the defensive end and on the offensive end, because she's just so quick, so athletic. But Amanda, on Sunday, we saw a new part of her game. We saw jump shots, right? Like Aaliyah Edwards said, I'm not coming out of the paint, and Ashlyn was happy to swish a couple of 17, 18-foot jump shots. And, I mean, she might as well have been Caitlin Clark shooting them. I mean, it was perfect form, swish, and then back down to the other end of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, she did a great job of making her woman guard her a little bit more and show her some respect, because right on that elbow, the top of the paint, she was able to just be wide open, take a breath. She had plenty of time to put up that shot. And like you said, it was a flawless shot. It was very smooth. She's got great flow, great finesse when it comes to working inside that paint area. And I do think that this is something that not maybe that she's unlocked, but this is something we've seen for the first time. She's gotten the opportunity to prove this, and she's definitely been working on it in practice and everything. But I think that's something that when we were talking about Staley talking after the game, saying, hey, she proved that she needs to be on this court, whether that's in the starting lineup or not. That's to be decided. We know Dawn Staley likes to keep her starting 5, but she rotates players out so quickly and so often throughout the game that Watkins is going to get so many more opportunities to continue proving herself. And whether that's blocking shots, rebounding, or just, she also brings this really kind of bad energy, but like in a good way, where she's feisty. And I know, shout out to my competition, WIS, but Dawn Staley was on their show, and I had to watch because I had to hear what Dawn Staley had to say. And she talked about how this team is so much more like her than the team last year. She's like, this team's got a lot of fire, a lot of feisty. She said her team last year was very nice, and that's all they were. But this team is nice and nasty, she said. And I think Ashlyn Watkins is the epitome of that when we see her play out there.
Yeah, I think if you go back to that North Carolina game, their point guard didn't realize how close she was to having every tooth in her mouth knocked down her throat. I mean, probably like 30 seconds away. Yeah. So one surprise to another, the quarter zip is taking Columbia by storm, and Lamont Paris is taking the nation by storm right now. South Carolina picked to finish dead last in the SEC in mid-February, is tied atop the SEC with Alabama. The Crimson Tide, they play more than just football. It used to be there were 2 sports in Alabama, football and spring football. Now there's more. But tonight, South Carolina has a huge matchup. It will be the first time as a ranked team, which the Gamecocks are up to number 11 in the polls, that they will be playing a ranked opponent in the Auburn Tigers and Bruce Pearl on the Plains, 8:30 local time, 7:30 Central Time. Auburn is like Clemson without the lake. They both wear orange. They're both the Tigers. They're both kind of small towns. But this will be a huge challenge. The Gamecocks have won 7 straight in the SEC for the first time in a long time. This is the highest they've been ranked since the 90s. There's a lot on the line tonight on the Plains in Auburn. And really, Amanda, if we look at this stretch of games that's left for South Carolina, outside of the home game against LSU, every game is probably going to be a quad 1 game according to the net. Number 1, what about the man that wears the quarter zip and his basketball team? And how about Chloe Kitt's man, The notorious CMB. I am the president of the notorious CMB fan club, and B stands for baller. Collin Murray-Boyles. So I even messed that up. But wow. This guy, he SEC Freshman of the Year. He's now rising up draft boards. He is a big reason for this team's success, but the sum of the parts, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Your thoughts on the job Lamont Paris is doing with this team and the remarkable season that they are having?
I love this team this season because they do have so many storylines. Last year, there was only one storyline, that this is year one, and we are going to be patient. But this year has been full of surprises. It's been full of players stepping up when they needed to, players that we didn't think were going to step up, but they did step up, and vice versa. And I'm going to start with CMB because he's fresh on my mind. What an awesome game from him last time out. They're going to need him to travel and play well tonight at 8:30. And this is a arena that Auburn has not lost in. They're 12-0 in this arena, so it's going to be a tough road environment. But Lamont Paris seemed very locked in. We talked to him yesterday at media availability, and he seemed very focused. The guys seemed a little silly, but in a good way, that they were loose. They were playing free during practice, making some half-court shots, which you never know when you're going to need to know how to make one of those. But yeah, CMB, SEC Freshman of the Week, only the third honor for South Carolina, the last one coming from Gigi Jackson. And we all see what he's doing now on the big stage, what he's been able to accomplish. And it's cool to see another hometown product. I feel like a lot of people forget that he's from here. He went to AC Flora High School for 3 years. Then he went out to Utah, and he just focused on his game. And at first he was unsure about it. I talked to his high school coach, Joshua Staley, who said that, he wasn't really sure if he should go all the way out to Utah and kind of be zoned in on basketball and leave all of his friends. But Coach Staley said that was the best thing for him. He just focused on his grind and became what we're seeing to this day, a powerhouse, if you will. And what I do love about this team, though, is that it doesn't come down to just one guy. I think this whole team all has role players, whether they're averaging double digits a night or they put up that, halftime leading three-point shot. Jacoby Wright has been a constant. He's also just been a constant in this program. So I feel like every time he steps out there, I'm like, okay, I'm cool, calm, and collected like Kobe. BJ Mack doing his thing down there in the paint. He's been awesome. He's been a force. And Misha Johnson started this season out balling, like pulling up from the logo, Steph Curry style. And we know that he still has that. Like, that's still in his tool belt. We haven't had to rely on it for these past couple of games. And I think that's so important for this team. They don't have to rely on one or two players to get the job done. I think that's a big similarity between the women's team, the men's team, is that they have so many great weapons that they can use and all guys that'll step up. Chemistry is just insane. It's awesome to see what the transfer portal has done for Lamont Paris and how he's been able to use it to make year two a huge year for this Gamecock program.
I agree. Completely. And you mentioned Jacob. Let's mention the development of Zachary Davis and Big Josh Gray. Was so frustrated in non-conference because he wasn't getting any run. He walked off the floor, right at the buzzer one game. He has become a dominant force for this team off the bench when they needed him, like against Kentucky. I mean, he put his hip into Big Z on that duck in, caught the ball, drop step, and threw down a thunderous dunk at Georgia on the road. BJ Mack didn't have it going. They played their big 7-footer. He completely dominated that game. He was outstanding. Let's talk about another team that not so long ago was also undefeated at home, the Tennessee Vols and Rick Barnes. South Carolina ended their home unbeaten streak. Obviously, they'll try to do that at Auburn tonight. But like you said, it's just not just like the women's team. It is not one player. We're going to take away Michi Johnson. Okay, Talon Cooper is going to start shooting like 60% from three and, sticking daggers in your heart at the end of shot clocks. Okay, BJ Mack doesn't have it going. Josh Gray's going to have 2 or 3 dunks now. We see a fully healthy Collin Murray-Boyles, the player that Lamont Paris saw this summer and in the fall prior to him contracting mono, which, by the way, I wonder if he got that from Chloe, but we'll table that. But great guard play. College basketball is about guard play. Nothing seems to faze Talon Cooper. He's been asked about it, about making free throws. Miles Studi at Tennessee, 4 straight free throws in the last 10 seconds of that game to ice it for South Carolina. Michi Johnson, he says, okay, you're not going to let me take threes. I'm going to go to the basket. I'm going to get both feet in the paint. I'm going to draw other people, and I'm going to kick it to wide open shooters like Miles Studi, at times Zachary Davis, certainly Talon Cooper, Morris Ugasuk, another guy that's come out of nowhere from, he's coming in early so we can redshirt him. He's playing 10, 15 minutes a night, and he's making big shots. That Ole Miss game at home when South Carolina was squandering that lead, he had a couple of really big shots at the end of the shot clock. So, just speak to that and just how connected these guys are.
Yeah, and when you talk about the composure in big moments, that stems from experience. The transfers that Paris brought in aren't just freshman and sophomore transfers. They're guys that have played in either multiple teams or just a lot of seasons with one team, and you have these experienced transfers that come in, and I don't think they would have meshed as well if it hadn't been for their trip to the Bahamas. I think that was like a huge storyline when we were doing preseason stuff. That's all these guys would talk about. They're like, we really just got to know each other. We bonded through on-court, off-the-court activities, and they just – I do think Paris has a huge role in that. I think somehow, some way, his personality has been able to let them all mesh together, which at first, I'm not gonna lie, my first impression of Coach Paris, I was not excited because I didn't know this guy. He was come from Chattanooga, and you felt like South Carolina made the bad call. A lot of people felt like South Carolina made the bad call, but you had to be patient. You had to realize that, hey, Paris actually knows what he's doing here, pulling these transfers in, building a foundation, and then you've got just so much experience. So they're able to play in these big games, even though the program itself hasn't had experience in these big games. Oh, and I did want to talk about Josh Gray's development, because when we talked to Dawn Staley the other week, I think it might have been after the Ole Miss game, we had asked her about Gamecock men's basketball, as we always do, because it's so fun hearing the coaches talk about the programs. And she was like, and how about Josh Gray, the horse, as they call him, in the way Paris has been able to develop him? She was really impressed because she knows the potential of a guy with that physique and that height and that strength. She's like, we've been waiting for him to do what he's doing now. And I think that's been a big game changer to have that kind of guy be able to step up and be efficient when he has the basketball in his hands.
Right. So being a Sparty, and watching Tom Izzo and Michigan State, you go back to those Wisconsin teams, Bo Ryan, right, when they had Frank Kaminsky and those guys. This team plays exactly like those Wisconsin teams. They force you to defend for at least 20 to 25 seconds, sometimes the entire shot clock. They play that pack line defense where they're not going – extend the defense and go for steals and push your offense, way back to the logo. They're going to stay in front of you. They're going to force you to make shots. They're going to force you to run good offense to get a good shot. And a lot of teams don't want to do that. they want to play AAU basketball. And so I think that South Carolina is different, just like Wisconsin was different. That's why they were able to beat Kentucky with 11 NBA players on that roster and really embarrass them. Plus the fact John Calipari is not that great of a coach, but he is a great recruiter. And so to me, that's why South Carolina is consistent, and it's because also he's not a raving lunatic on the sideline. His demeanor is calm, which I think instills confidence in his players to be calm. And like you said, they're older guys for the most part, outside of Collin. All these guys are older guys. They've been in college for 3, 4, or 5 years, and they're unfazed. And now the confidence is there because guess what? Hey, everything coach told us, when we do it, we win. And so I'm going to be interested, and I'm not predicting this to happen, but I want your take on it here as we wrap up. Is Lamont Paris going to be like Shane Beamer in that he keeps receipts? And if South Carolina were to get a share of that SEC regular season championship, at the press conference with the trophy, is Lamont Paris going to call out the SEC media for picking them dead last?
I mean, he's already called it out throughout this season. The fact that, they're gonna get what's coming, all this stuff. We've got a lot of quotes on T-shirts around the Columbia, but I wouldn't be surprised considering that he's been able to back up his talk with action, and that action, if they do share the title, he'll be able to back up his talk with proof right there. But I also know Lamont Paris is a good guy, and he I don't know, I can't see him starting too much tea over that. But also, if you wouldn't share the SEC title when they counted you out, props to you. Or, more power to you if you say something that, I don't know, I wouldn't mind it.
I would definitely be there for that with the popcorn.
Yeah.
So, final question. I'm going to put you on the spot. South Carolina has 7 games to go. They are 21-3. They are projected currently as a 5 seed. This is a really difficult stretch of games. To stay on that 4 or 5 line, how many games do you think South Carolina has to win in these final 7?
The SEC is such a mess right now, right?
It is. It's the best league in the country. They may have 9 or 10 teams in the SEC tournament or NCAA tournament. My bad.
I mean, I'd like to see them win out. I could see them dropping this one tonight and then winning out. That'd be awesome. That'd be perfect. I don't know. I would say you got to get a couple in here, and it's got to be, like you said, most of these will be quad 1 wins if they do. So,
or quad 1 losses. So
yeah,
it's really not going.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking 3 or 4. You gotta. I'm gonna say 4. I'm gonna say 4.
That's my pick as well. Go 4-3. Finish in the top 4. Maybe you get a double bye, or at least you get 1 round of bye, and then get at least 1 win in that SEC tournament, which they've not done in forever, and make some noise. Get a 4 or 5 seed, make it to the second weekend, and reap the benefits in the transfer portal. That's what I say.
And I love the fact that, we're talking about winning an SEC title right here, going to the SEC tournament and doing damage. Everything that's happened already, we're already exceeding expectations. So as we would like to see them go far, so.
No, I mean, look, for me, expectations exceeded. I thought a good year would be to have a winning season and win enough to get in the NIT, and then maybe make a little bit of noise in the NIT, the Dave Odom Invitational Tournament. But it's going to be beyond that, which is amazing. South Carolina may have 2 SEC Coaches of the Year, 2 National Naismith Coaches of the Year. At least that's what's on pace right now. Amanda, I can't thank you enough for being on with us today. Hopefully we can get you back. And you've definitely taken all the attention off my ugly mug. And so we definitely appreciate that. And hopefully my bald head did not blind you or anything like that. But tell us what you're working on at Watch Fox. What's coming next?
Well, today we have Dawn's daily media availability before their game against Tennessee. So we'll hear the latest and greatest from her. And then I'm going to South Carolina women's tennis. They host Clemson. They're looking for a Palmetto point. So that's what I'll be doing.
All right. Well, hopefully there's some Valentine's Day activities as well. All the best to you, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for
all right. Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
All right. You take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. That is Amanda Poole from Watch Fox 57. I'll be right back to wrap up the show right after this. All right, let me tell you about my good friend Brent Skinner at BP Skinner Clothiers, located in the heart of Columbia's historic district. At BP Skinner, they have built their reputation on the perfect fit of trust, quality, service, and style. It is their privilege to provide you professional and individual attention to help create a wardrobe that distinctly identifies you. Excellence is their passion. They strive to make their quality and service as exceptional as the customers they serve. Whether it's Brent or Josh, his main man on the floor, they have been building relationships and serving customers for years. Okay. If you go to the store and you're frustrated, just like I used to be when I just couldn't find things that fit off the rack, okay, and you need, maybe it's because you're tall, maybe your arms are too long, you have problems finding dress shirts or jackets that fit the way you want them to fit. Maybe you just have a big occasion coming up and want that nice blazer, or you've got a new job and you want some suits that really make you pop. Custom made shirts designed just for you, French cuffs or buttons with the monogram sleeve or not. Okay, whether it is the Gamecock line of quarter zips from Holderness and Bourne like I'm wearing, they got them with the circle. With the Gamecock, they got them with the Block C. They got the Script Carolina. They've got polos, shoes, neckties, shirts, pullovers. Not Gamecock pullovers, but just nice pullovers to wear over a collared shirt. Okay, whatever your custom clothing needs, Brent Skinner has got you covered. He's the best in the business. He's got customers all over the country. He's been serving his customers with excellence for 17 years. This is a Gamecock owned and operated business. Shoes, socks, belts, casual slacks, dress slacks, suits, jackets, sport coats made just for you. Whatever your clothing needs are, Brent Skinner has got you covered. It's a family business. He and his wife Marlo started it together. Go and check them out located in the heart of the Vista at 1005 Gervais Street, right there on the right when you turn left at the State House and go down into the Vista. Right there on the right, walk in. If Brent is not out on the floor, Josh will go get him. Tell him I sent you. Gamecock Pod Live and Keith Alsep. Brent and Marlo Skinner, family owned and operated business and a Gamecock owned and operated business. Support them in the Vista. All right, a few notes to wrap it up today. One, Ohio State, they fired their head basketball coach, Chris Holtmann, after back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes, okay? College basketball guru and one of my go-to guys, Jeff Goodman, he lists Lamont Paris and Sean Miller as obvious candidates. I could see Ohio State making a run at Kansas State's Jerome Tang. I could see Mick Cronin at UCLA coming back to the Buckeye State, where he was a Cincinnati graduate, a longtime Bob Huggins assistant, okay, and then left, worked for Rick Pitino at Louisville, got the Murray State job, then went back to Cincinnati as head coach. I could see him being in the mix. I could see a guy like Johnny Dawkins, who's getting it done at Central Florida now that they've moved into the Big 12. I could see him. I could see them making a move on Chris Beard at Ole Miss. They got the money to pay the buyout, okay? So that could be a wide open coaching search. College football, we could see more NFL influence this year. We saw in some of the bowl games the helmet communication for the quarterback and the quarterback of the defense. That could be on the table in college football this year. I say, why not? If you're South Carolina, Dowell Loggins is used to that, and you're going to have a freshman quarterback, I think that would be outstanding. And the NCAA will also discuss later this month going to a 2-minute warning at each half. And you know what? I think that's a shoe-in, because guess what that means? That's another 3-minute and 15-second ad or another 3-minute and 50-second ad that ESPN, Fox, ABC, whoever, CBS, they're going to sell. That's 2 more big ad buys for the network. So you know that's going to happen. Okay. Also, 5 Gamecocks will be going to the NFL Combine, which will be next week. That will be quarterback Spencer Rattler, who's riding high after being the Senior Bowl MVP and his stock rising. Some people have him going in the second round, no later than early to mid third round. Right now, I think that's fantastic. Xavier Legette, okay, Combine is going to be huge for him. Right now, he's slotted as a second round pick because he's only done it for the 1 year, okay? And the last time a Gamecock wide receiver had a big 1 year and then went to the draft, he went in the top 10. That was Troy Williamson. He did not have an exceptional NFL career. But I think Xavier Legette will have a shot at the Combine during the interview process and then at his pro day to work his way into the first round. It only takes one team to fall in love with him. Okay, Trey Knox at tight end. He's in the Combine. Currently, he's slated as a 6th round guy. Nick Gargiulo will be there. He will probably be a 7th round, 6th to 7th round, maybe even an undrafted free agent. And Marcellus Dial, who played in the East-West Shrine game, worked at corner and nickel for the Gamecocks. had a chance to play some safety and special teams. What helps his stock is his size and his 6'6" wingspan. He'll need to run well. He'll need to have a good combine and a good senior day. He'll be a late round pick as well. Shane Beamer with one opening to fill on his coaching staff after Justin Stepp departed last week for Illinois. No real shock there. Okay, Shane Beamer spun it at the press conference about how moving to tight ends would help his coaching career because he had aspirations of being a coordinator. Let's face it, Justin Stepp got demoted. He lost the confidence of the guys in the recruiting department and his superiors because, quite frankly, he had not done the job on the recruiting trail. You look at the number of guys that transferred out that never played a lick or never contributed to anything at South Carolina. Justin Stepp, that's most of the guys he signed. Okay. It does look like Shane Beamer will hire a tight ends coach. The big name right now is John Lilly, who is a coaching veteran. He was a recruiting coordinator and tight ends coach for Bobby Bowden at Florida State. He joined Mark Richt at Georgia after leaving Florida State. When Bobby Bowden's tenure came to an end there, was outstanding at Georgia, went to the National Football League, has worked with several franchises there, worked for Mack Brown on his staff, most recently with the Carolina Panthers. And he is a guy that has a special teams background as well, but also long-standing recruiting ties and a guy known as being a big-time recruiter at Florida State and Georgia. Look, we all know when you put on that Gamecock polo, it doesn't always translate, okay? But he is a veteran, and, Joe D. Camillus, hiring him, I would have never thought Shane Beamer could have upgraded from Pete Limbo, but he did. I think we'll see another upgrade here, and I think you got two sharks in Marquell Blackwell and James Coley. You ditched the worst recruiter on your staff in Montario Hardesty. I expect another upgraded hire, Shane Beamer rounding his staff into becoming a top-tier SEC staff, and they're going to need it. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about that Auburn game. Hopefully we'll be a happy bunch of Gamecocks. As Steve Spurrier used to say, special thanks to my guy Chandler Mack, who killed it, and to the very lovely Amanda Poole for her debut today on Valentine's Day. And so until tomorrow, this has been Gamecock Pod Live. I am Keith Alsep saying God bless. Happy Valentine's Day. Guys, you still got a chance. Go get that last minute gift, flowers, cards, candy, whatever it is. Enjoy the night. Pull for the Gamecocks. I'll be back tomorrow on Gamecock Pod Daily. Alsep out. I am out of here.